Hello, namaskar. Um, it's 10th of January today. It's around quarter past 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m. And I noticed that a lot of people are now in the process of awakening to the glory of Indian culture, of Indian spirituality. And I just cannot help joining excuse me, of joining the interest, the excitement. Actually, the Indian culture or the Indian civilization is one of the oldest um, civilizations, one of the oldest cultures that has came down from ancient time. And if scientists are to be believed that it was part of a bigger continent, a great landmass known as RAR, or what they refer to Gondwana land, which encompasses South America, Africa, Australia, Philippines, and many places. And due to this tectonic movement, this has been happening many times during the course of human history, of world history. We find that continents and landmass are rearranging, are separating and rearranging, and so on, and drifting, continental drifting. All these are part of geography. So we had they say about 500 million years ago, a segment of this great continent, supercontinent called Rar, just drifted off, formed two other civilization, Pangea and another civilization which spanned over millions of years also, before it gradually and slowly moved and collided with Asia. So it's there, the documentation is there, you can read it online on the net. But Madame Blavatsky, who was from Ukraine actually, she was a great occultist and one of the great minds of the 18th, 19th century, 18th century. She mentioned root races, and that this continent produced great souls or great beings that guarded over humanity and shaped the destiny and future of mankind. She said in the Himalayas was existing the White Brotherhood, the Universal Brotherhood, which comprised of some great masters, which she herself claimed to have met Madame Blavatsky, master like Master Kutumi, El Moraya, the Tibetan master Dwaja, I think was his name, and all these great teachers, the Mahachohan and all these men. It's amazing the ascended masters include people from Africa, Afra, Lady Naida, Buddha. A lot of them are Indians also. She claimed that these were ordinary people, and through time they developed themselves and they've become ascended masters and they're helping humanity and people. One of them is the Count of Saint Germain. He was supposed to be a oh, Portuguese man who studied alchemy in South India and came back to Europe, and he was seen all over Europe from place to place, meeting royals, dignities, conversing with high class, and so he was known as Saint Germain, the man who would not die. And there's a whole school, if you investigate him, there in Europe existing, where his followers and people who practice his techniques and method, like the prophets Elizabeth and Mark Prophet and so on, and they reputed that he's constantly watching over humanity along with Kutumi and El Moraya, the Indian masters, and Mahachohan is also Indian, and they're helping humanity and so on. Now, the real Indian culture is very deep and it is very subtle, and it drew the respect a long time ago from all of the rest of the world, you know. In fact, it was said, rumored that they were the progenitor of the entire civilization, human civilization, which migrated across various places of the world, including the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, also even the Asians. But um, what happened is that due to time and geography and so on, these people metamorphose, some mutate. If you check this, look at the study of the European genes, they said there were some gene segments that mutated among the Europeans. I don't know if this happened with the Indians also. But what I do know is that India, apart from its great mass, its great population of poor, of suffering and struggling, they had its heydays when there was no poverty, when the people were rich, affluent, they were highly developed spiritually and so on. And they say they had a high technology, but this probably fade away. And the Indian civilization, they say that from time to time the orders go through cycles, you know, social cycles, where you have different culture, different habits, practices go through a cyclical machinery, you know. So we have society has been changing from time to time also in India due to invasions from people who are returning back with an interest in India. They've been victims of many natural disasters, social and psychological upheavals also have shook up the nation. There was the British present, the Muslim present, Genghis Khan invasion. So the country went through a lot of. So we can't say today this is the Kaljug age and we can put the label of a great civilization there today, because this is a Kaljug age. And there also experiences the ravages of time, of nature, of astrological forces, astronomical forces, and this has an effect on the people, their mind, their body and soul. But we still have, in the words of Paramahansa Yogananda, great mystics come from time to time to keep that particular civilization alive. And in the hordes of that culture, you can find many secrets, many clues, many knowledge about the universe, about the human body, the mind, the spirit, the soul, the secret and mysteries of living a full and complete life, you know. And we can't argue that it's a weak civilization because and it has no contribution to science, but rather we can say it laid down the foundation for modern science today. It invented the zero. What is called the Arabic numerals were taken by the Arabs from India to Europe and the western provinces. The zero was invented by India, and the binary system, if it wasn't for the binary system, no computers would have been could have been created today. I think the decimal system also came from India, if I'm right. So there were some very great mathematicians like Aryabhata, Ramanuja. No, not Ramanuja, Ramanujan. He, the man who discovered infinity, you know, and they had grammarians, English scholars like Panini and these men, politicians like Chanakya. So they had their heydays, and though the way of dressing, their hairstyle, some of them had a clean shaven, they had a Brahmin ponytail, pigtail at the back here. Make today modern people would laugh and would find it funny and amusing and so on. But those were the men who were genius and they created the foundation of modern society. They laid the foundation which we later built upon. But this being the culture age, people start to look outside of themselves. They want things from the outside. They want to make the world a better place to live in. And using the sharpness of the mind and the powers of the mind, they were able to work upon the external to make it and to reshape, rebuild, integrate, combine. You know, so we have something newer and better today. If people did not take the courage and had the courage to conquer inimical forces, lower forces that are pulling, that are intervening, they would have not progressed or make progress. So how is it that God helped mankind amid so much strife and physical impediments, obstacles like disease and natural disasters? How did he make them to go ahead? Whether it's a long process or it's a slow and gradual one, or whether it's due to men born in special circumstances and special places, we don't know. But what we can say, the level that mankind has reached is astounding. And they're improving upon each level, and upon each moment is becoming deeper and more complicated, more complex. And it's being each moment is being enriched, each moment is being bettered, is improved to have subsequent victory and success. So from moment to moment, we are bringing out and we are improving, or we are heightening our consciousness to appreciate greatness and glory of the infinite consciousness, where it takes an outward manifestation or an inward turn of the mind. Today people look at the Indian culture and they say, how can this be that the whole universe and all its knowledge is encoded within the books, within the Indian scriptures, which can help mankind go forward, which can help them gain strength of body, presence of mind, ambition, purpose, genetic engineering. All these things come out of the practice of Indian culture. And these can all help mankind to make his world a better place, to help him to rediscover himself and better himself, and to make a positive contribution on the planet. The consciousness of man is running at various temperatures, from the lower planes to the higher planes. And he's not always, in that higher state of mind. He has to come down for the sake of the masses, the greater population, to the lower planes to interact and communicate and so on. And most of the great teachers or the enlightened mystics who came here, some of them had to come down to the lower planes to teach and give solace and comfort to humanity. When the Buddha found enlightenment, he had an alternative: to remain up in the mountains or in the forests and be self-contented king and emperor, or to come back into the society and teach mankind. So they say, once you take a human body and the five um, tattvas, the pancha tattvas, you have the five elements, you form a human body, it comes under the terrestrial law. If you're going to work under the terrestrial law, it will come under the control and operation of terrestrial law, meaning that no matter how great you are, your body will deteriorate. Signs of old age, disease, death, all these will come in. So the glory of life is not the glory of the body, because the body changes every 8 years. The same body you had 8 years ago is not the same one. There's old cells dying off, washing off, and there's a new cell body that is being born every 8 years. So body is changing. Sometimes it decomposes, deteriorates, but there are psychic levels that we have in which we enjoy each other's company, each other's friendship. These spiritual benefits that we can enjoy and use. Spiritual is the adjective of the spirit. A man who lives in the spirit is spiritual. He enjoys or works with the powers of his spirit. He operates from the impulses of his spirit. His spirit is manifesting outside and inside in all directions. And this is how he carries himself from incarnation to incarnation through a spiritual force or a spiritual propulsion. So physically, progress might have reactions. Intellectual progress may have reactions. You invent the car, the automobiles, the engine, there's accidents, there's wear and tear. But they say in the spiritual level, there is no reactions, there's no side effect or repercussions. You just keep progressing all the time. So the Indian culture is one of the perfect ways of unraveling yourself. If you're interested in discovering more richer fields of consciousness of being, and it has been discovered by the genius minds of the great Western civilization and its scientists, philosophers like Immanuel Kant, Swedenborg, Spinoza, who was a great admirer of the Sri Sankacharya. So great minds and great philosophies give great civilizations. And we really can't judge a book by its cover. Undoubtedly, there are many fake teachers and people who are using the name of India, the name of Indian culture and civilization to make things be in favor of their own selves and so on. But the truth of the matter is that you can only experience the Indian culture if you live it. And people have been endeavoring in this direction to transplant Indian culture, to bring it home into their own offices. And even other minor religions have been influenced by the Indian cultures, like the Mormonism, the Mormon culture. The pastor Stephen Anderson, when he was in Guyana, he said that most of the American culture, it came from India. Star Wars movie, they were affected one way or another by Indian thought and Indian culture. So while he was in Guyana, he was preaching and saying that Christianity is superior. He went at many schools in Guyana, like Roses Central High School and so on, and created a sensation. And some of the things that he talked was that America culture is largely derived from Asian mysticism. So you can see today that the foundations for our modern era was indeed contributed greatly from India by Indians, thinkers and saints and mystics, but we cannot say those quality of those men are present today in this Kal-Yuga age. They've all mixed up with the lower planes the pull from the lower planes, the level of the consciousness is not so pure, you know. You have to do a lot more karma yoga and good deeds. We have to practice, and we have to keep exercising, you know. So there's much to learn by any nation that wants to incorporate elements of mysticism or the spirit. They can use some of the ancient texts, some of the ancient teachings of um, the Hindu Kush, you know, the civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. They have a lot of writing there, so many methodology to awaken the higher man, the superman, that if nations and civilization were to use that, their people would prosper and become greater and more successful. It's surprising that politicians are not really encouraging it due to um, the disparity in social viewpoints and the stance people have taken against Indian culture, you know. But if you really get into the depth of it and see some of the products, some of the great minds and philosophy, people just submit, you know. Even the great thinker Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a student of Henry David Thoreau, they were lovers of the Indian culture and civilization. I met a great pathologist over in the West Coast there, Gulf Guyana, Demerara, when I was working at the West Dem Hospital. A doctor there. He's a great follower of Indian culture. He's an Afro-Guyanese, and he has pictures with all the Indian saints in his house and so on. So it's not that it's a weak culture. It's this civilization keep alive. It's still alive with the mystics and great saints that are there, you know. But you cannot maybe see the glory of the mystics if they don't allow you or they don't want you to see it. You might look like ordinary people, like simple people, and if your mind is not subtle and deaf enough, it cannot perceive and receive the depth of the mind field, the mind consciousness and expansivity, you know. So there's a lot to learn, you know. So many people have been given permission to go to Europe and America and open Indian ashrams and Indian communities. It's a pity they weren't allowed to be a part of the society where they can influence citizens, national citizens, local citizens, and have them integrated into a greater civilization and culture, you know. The tenets of the Indian culture is really life-giving. It's very healing to the planet. It's very holistic. It's mystical. It's enchanting. It's charming. For those who follow it to the utmost, the reward is great. Wonderful. There's nothing to oppose, since they say, whom the Lord blesseth, no man curseth. It's just that you have to see a perfect example. Somebody who represents the final spirit of that civilization has to emerge. But so far, you know, most of the people that we're meeting today have not really stimulated or excited our passion for great things, for the superhuman, the superordinary, the extraordinary. Rather, we most of the time are left to cohabit with ordinary things and ordinary places and ordinary events, which sometimes degenerate into the lower planes, going manifesting into violence, resistance, revolutions, bad tempers, and bad circumstances. I think the Emperor of China was wise when he invited the Buddhist missionaries to India to propagate Buddhism in China. I think that was one of the greatest things we can appreciate about politicians appreciating the necessity for mysticism, higher states of mind, and the ways and means to bring solace and progress and prosperity to their civilization. They say when the Buddhist missionaries went to China, the gods who were living in the atmosphere, inhabiting the land of China, they were very pleased, you know. They were very happy. And when they're happy, the gods are happy, nature would rejoice, everything would work out nice, and there would be a kind of communion with each other, with society, with nature that is out of this world, you know. So there's a lot of things to know and to experiment and to introduce and to investigate, but we have to have an open mind, you know. And many people have started a journey when they're young, which is very good, you know. They started a journey when they were very young, which is very good, and they have accumulated a lot of insights. They've had a lot of changes in their life. They have been blessed with so much, and it's good when you can start when you're young, you know. They say many are called, but few are chosen or so. One Dadaji, Dada Satyat Makananda, who was our LFT trainer there in Brazil, he was saying that many people come to Ananda Marg in these South American places. Some end up rotating peripherally. Some are go and they come back, but they're always there in the circumference, navigating, circumambulating in their own ways, you know. So Swami Sivananda said that the entire creation, the entire civilization was brought through the tapas, the penance of mystics. And there's no power higher than yoga, you know. So through yoga they say Ganga came down through the penance of Bhagirata, left the heavens and came down here and created a whole sensation and story kata, you know, mystic kata, or these katas, beautiful stories that enchant the people in the world, you know. So if we can understand, the richer the rituals and the mythology of a nation, the greater the mind, the more fertile the mind, the richer the mind becomes. And when you have a richer mind, it's more sensitive or receptacle to find things. It's more sensitive to suggestions from the universe, the cosmos, from invisible helpers and beings and so on. So there are many good things that our people can benefit from, our young children can learn. Today, so many of them are going into Kung Fu, into Buddhism. You know, they got the effects on their body eventually as time goes by. There's a long-term effect. It might not start working right away, but once it enters the system, like one dada was telling me, once you take the mantra of Ananda Marg, it starts working in the system, changing everything, reorganizing, rebuilding. So it's a very subtle feel, and we can see one of the examples in America was a new Brindavan community which they tried to institute there, and the many communities that they're trying to build there to replicate the philosophy and the culture of the Hindus, you know, which is a very ancient and old technology. And if you get into the depths of it, it is as complicated as our science says. Medicine, physics, biology, chemistry, it is probably more complicated, you know. It's more deep also. So people can experiment, they can taste, you know. I don't know, I still wondering why the cultures of the people of the world, why they don't make even more use of this ancient technology that the Hindus have. You know, the Greek made use of it. The Old people made use of it. Why not us also? These are eternal teachings and things that will not corrode and decay. The Bible says, put your things up where moth and cobwebs and dirt and rust will not corrupt. These are spiritual values. They cannot be corrupted or destroyed. So there's so much to know about the cosmos, the astral, because they have a direct effect on our lives, our communities, on our families. People say they are curse, they're jinx, because some one of their ancestors did something so and so, so it will affect so much generation down and so. These are ancestral habits that hold sway over many cultures and civilization. The ancestral qualities of warriors, of kings, nobility. People try to inherit them, have them passed down from generation to generation by keeping souvenirs from their ancestors' lives, like walking sticks and pipes and hats and coats and jackets, shoes, and so on. So in this way they hope that the energy can reach them, come down to them. Well, if it's an energy, you have to know how to contain it also. It can move out in the environment, it can enter into other people. There's so much mysteries and powers, and we have to learn how to control, regulate, um, proper use, and so on. The life is not just about eating, sleeping, fighting. If you keep fighting all the time, you will be caught up in an aggressive plane. I will not see the other planes of light and magnanimity and expansivity. You'll just be caught up in a hostile plane. Eventually your features will change. You'll become hostile looking, Asuric looking, warrior. If you want to be a warrior saint, then you practice that kind of thing. But nature works in many ways also, not only through fighting. When nature and whole creation supports you, then the variegatedness of nature will become more manifest. Let's say when the Buddha first started out, the sun was so hot, he was doing penance. They say a snake came and formed a hood over his head and sheltered him. There was one Catholic saint, his name was Anthony, I think. He was living in the desert. Every day a bird would fly over and drop a loaf of bread for him, right in the middle of nowhere he was living, and just trusted in God.